An error occurred. Wait a moment, and then try again. Okay. Try again.
What's the scoop on
Oh. Good morning, or whenever you're looking at this, everybody. Sorry, Tom, I hit live right as he started asking me a question before we went live. So, good morning, everybody. Two Spot Monkeys live. I'm Jim, joined as always by Tom. Tom, how you doing? Do you want to finish that question or no?
It's all good. It was football related, and this is not a football podcast. So I like how you said good morning. It is good morning for us, but folks could be listening to us anytime. So welcome wherever you are and however you are joining us, and thanks for joining us. I'm doing great, Jim. It's a busy season, but I'm glad for a few minutes of time to chat with you this morning.
Absolutely. And for those who might get notifications when we go live on YouTube, you might note we're about an hour early, just some life things. So we just adjusted because we wanted to make sure we got a show in. And so here we are, bright and early this Friday morning as we record. And as Tom said, could be middle of the night or middle of the afternoon when you're listening to us. We just appreciate that you are. So we haven't been able to be with you. Was it 1 week we missed? 2 weeks. I don't even remember anymore.
And when I say it's a busy season, I can't even remember. Right?
I know we didn't record last week. I think it was just 1 week we had to miss. But we have looked at the schedule and we think we're going to be good moving forward here through until Thanksgiving, which we would normally take a break that week anyways. So fingers crossed that life doesn't throw either one of us any curveballs over the next few weeks. We think we're going to hit a little run here Friday. So we hope you'll be with us for the ride. You're right. It's not a football podcast, Tom, but yeah, I said to you right before we clicked live that the last time we recorded it was Victory Friday. I was just listening back to that episode a little bit this week, and it was the day after the Bears had just taken care of business against the Commanders, and well, that was fun for a week. Now the Bears get to play the Raiders on Sunday in the Tyson Bagent versus Aiden O'Connell or Brian Hoyer Bowl. I bet Fox and CBS are falling over themselves to cover that one. And in our not a fantasy football podcast, but in our Dynasty League, which I am yet again terrible in this year, although have had to deal with a couple of injuries and, in a 20-team league, there's not a lot of depth. Speaking of those injuries, Anthony Richardson was my number one draft pick out for the year. I have Dak Prescott on a bye this week, so I am starting Tyson Bagent this week because he qualifies at quarterback and he'll be on the field. And that was what I had to go with. I mean, to pick your brain on how to be competitive in that league, because boy, I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe stop drafting people to get hurt.
It's not. There's no one size fits all. I've been limping along with zero running back. I was very, very excited about the prospect of Dalvin Cook after week 1. And then my excitement has turned to misery. That being said, I've still been able to maintain a decent roster without any semblance of running backs. And I've been trying to make moves slightly here and there, and I'm not getting any bites. And I don't want to go to you and pick the bones off the carcass. Not that you'd even be willing to trade me who you have at running back.
I have one good running back who is also injured. And I'm starting Justice Hill. I guess when over the last number of years I've drafted J.K. Dobbins, Anthony Richardson, Chase Young, and Jameson Williams, who have all missed significant time. That might explain part of why I've struggled in that league, because I can't draft anybody that stays on the field. So college players are now calling me and asking me not to draft them so that they might have a good NFL career. All right, enough football talk. That was 4 minutes of non-wrestling, but that's okay. Spoiler alert, it'll probably happen again somewhere in this next hour. But we did, the last time we talked, we made very fast lane picks because we talked a lot of, I believe, AEW before Fastlane. And we got up against our hard stop time. And I mean, we blew through those Fastlane picks. But on the head-to-head updates, I wouldn't mind blowing through the results on that. As I said in a message to Tom, he waxed me on Fastlane. I had a 2-match lead, I believe, going into 1 or 2.
One match lead going into that. Yeah,
that's right. Going into Fastlane, and Tom went 4-1. I went 2-3. So that puts Tom now with the 1-match lead, 49-20, and I'm 48-21. According to my records, I see you nodding. So
that's correct.
Matches what you got. I have to be honest, I don't have the results up, so I don't even remember what. I know we disagreed on the tag title match. Which here's a question, Tom. Did you watch Fastlane?
I'm in the middle of the LA Knight John Cena versus Bloodline match. So I thought I was going to watch it with a little bit more intent. And I feel like I had to get spoiled for some reason. So once that happened, I was like, I'll get to it whenever. And again, as you know, like it's hard to find time just to watch the stuff you like to watch in the course of a week. And ever since they've moved to Saturdays, and especially in college football season, there ain't no way I'm watching a premium live event on a Saturday night. I'm actually already nervous thinking ahead to Full Gear because that's on a Saturday because it's NFL season and Tony Khan doesn't want to compete with the NFL. I don't think I'm going to be able to go watch Full Gear. Which I'm bummed about because I'm actually really excited about the build for that. And I know there's only one match, or maybe there's more after Wednesday. I'm not through Dynamite yet. I digress. That's where I'm at with premium live events, pay-per-views, things on a Saturday or a Sunday in the September to December timeframe. Football is where my energy and my time, and it drives the social aspect of things. Tomorrow here in Michigan, it is a rivalry game, even though it doesn't feel like much of a rivalry game because of what's been happening between Michigan and Michigan State. We're getting together with friends and we're doing a big, to watch that game. And most of the people will be there will be Michigan fans, so I'm sure we'll be living it up. And the other people that are there that are State fans are probably just there to drink and eat. And but you never know. Like if that's in rivalry games, again, look at Notre Dame and USC a week ago. Sorry, here we go talking about football again. But I digress. So yeah, the point is watching things on a Saturday, and Collision is hard enough, and that's not a premium live event. So
I still haven't made it through last week's Collision. I'm a few matches in, and Collision's gotten a little squash match heavy. It feels like the last couple of weeks. So, but I hear the Christian Cage and Bryan Danielson match is worth going out of my way to see. So I'll eventually get there. Probably, maybe we'll see.
Yeah. So in the long narrative to answer your question, no, I have not completed Fastlane.
And I didn't see any of it. I had other things going on that weekend, and yeah, again, keeping up on AEW and anything else I might want to watch. I just decided no, don't go back. I know I had picked the Judgment Day to win the keep their tag titles, and you had picked Cody and Jay, although you did say by DQ, we'll give you the win because it doesn't matter how they did it.
I know. Well, I listened back to that episode. And I go, man, Jim could really try to push me on a technicality. I go, I'm not going to let him, but you could potentially have an argument. And again, I did not anticipate Cody and Jay winning the tag titles.
Only to turn around and lose them back 2 weeks later or whatever it was, and they've done that twice now with the Judgment Day. Dominic, same thing. Triple H, I like a lot of what you're doing with the booking, but stop doing the hot potato thing. I know that's very Attitude Era-esque, and that worries me just a little bit because I don't want to say I've loved all of Roman Reigns' reign as champion, but I've loved that it's a long reign. I love Gunther, that it's a long reign. I have loved most everything in the reign because he's amazing, and Reigns is amazing as well. But so I know not every reign can be 4, 5, 6, 700 days. But I don't do a ton of hot potato either. That just worries me when I see it happen twice in rapid succession.
Yeah. So we were both wrong on the 6-man. We had picked Lashley and the Street Profits. The return of Carlito undermined us in that regard, which again, I don't even. It's weird to me.
The minute I realized, when Ray said he was going to call a friend, I was like, I bet it's Carlito because they'd been talking about him being signed for a while, on Sean Ross Sapp and others. And I thought, and are you going to beat Carlito? Of course, they haven't done anything with him since, basically, except getting beat up in the parking lot. But I wished at that point, I was like, maybe I should change that pick on our fantasy picks. I couldn't change it here. But alas, I still think Lashley and the Profits need the win. Why aren't we building that trio?
Yeah, and then you had the Bloodline, and I had John Cena and LA Knight, and that was our other difference.
And your explanation really, I think, is borne itself out in that LA Knight I see as the challenger, maybe even a crown jewel. I think you had said Survivor Series, and that made sense. Either place makes sense, wherever. Maybe they'll do something else for Crown Jewel. I don't know, but it kind of feels like that's probably where they're headed with 2 weeks to go before Crown Jewel, which should be fun. I love that they're elevating LA Knight. I hope that when they do, they let him stay there at that level that they're bringing him to, and don't just bring him up, get him beat, and then, send him back. So Tom, waxed me, cleaned my clock, whatever you want to say, on that one. So we still have Crown Jewel, as I mentioned, a couple weeks. We'll have Full Gear. Is that same weekend as Crown Jewel? Or
no? Crown Jewel is the beginning of November. Full Gear is 2 weeks after.
A couple weeks after.
And then Rumble is the week after that.
Oh, Survivor Series.
Rumble. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of LA Knight, and I'm thinking of we're closer to Rumble for next year than we are from this past Rumble. And I just was thinking about again, with respect to the passing of Bray Wyatt, it was LA Knight and Bray Wyatt in the pitch black match, and thinking about him there versus thinking about him now, or where he'll be at the Royal Rumble come January, it's a huge growth in him and in his spot in the promotion.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and I think that's going to be an interesting thing to follow as we get closer to the Rumble. He's certainly in that conversation of people you think could win the Rumble. Obviously, Cody is always a major factor there too. And who knows, The Rock? But that's a conversation for weeks and months ahead of us. Won't get too far ahead of ourselves. So we've got those picks as well. And then into December, Final Battle and Deadline have each been announced. And there's rumblings of an AEW pay-per-view, so perhaps one more show for us to add in there. So still 5 shows for sure, maybe 6. And if they announce anything else, I don't expect WWE to announce anything else.
I'm not caught up on AEW TV, and I would imagine that would be cross promoted here. What is the date for Final Battle, and did they announce where?
They did announce it. It is in Texas on the 15th of December, Garland, Texas,
okay.
Where they've run a couple other shows, I know.
Yeah.
Yep. So the 15th of December, Garland, Texas, and exclusively on Honor Club. So I'm curious though, their last pay-per-view, Death Before Dishonor, was it? Was available on Honor Club, but you had to have the Honor Club membership at $10 a month, and then you had to buy the pay-per-view for $40 or whatever it was. Now that they're saying it's exclusively on Honor Club, I'm curious if it's still a pay-per-view or if it's included. If it's included, I'll pay the $10 and watch the show. If I've got to pay $10 to get Honor Club and $40 to get the pay-per-view, you better make that worth my while before I even consider it. And I think what we're going to talk about today might talk about why, I didn't pay for the last Ring of Honor pay-per-view. And I probably wouldn't pay $50 for this one again, unless you load it up in a way that makes me go, okay, I got to see that. But that's really what we're going to talk about today is Ring of Honor. We kind of hinted at this a couple of weeks ago. Tom and I, to go a little history for you, and we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, probably a lot actually on the show before. Ring of Honor is how Tom and I met. We were both members of the Ring of Honor board, message board, the infamous Ring of Honor message board back in the day, and got to know each other, I guess, a little bit on the board, and then met in Chicago for the first time at WrestleMania 22 weekend, which is kind of insane when you realize we're at WrestleMania 40 this next year. So we've known each other now almost 18 years, and eventually became great friends, and now not only friends, but podcast buddies and, all of that kind of stuff. Tom stood up at my wedding. I mean, so Ring of Honor, obviously, to Tom and I's friendship is huge. And of course, we followed it all along and through the different iterations of Ring of Honor. Now we have the Tony Khan version of Ring of Honor, which is what it is. And I think, Tom, that I can speak for you and say that we both feel like it could be so much more than it is.
100%. And kind of the impetus for this conversation for me was just about a month ago, I was able to attend Collision Live. And in that Collision Live, they also taped Ring of Honor for the next Thursday. And I just sitting there, and I stayed the entire night. Now, number one, it wasn't a good draw for AEW. They drew like under 4,000 people in a easily 11,000 seat venue, which is super disappointing. But I feel like there's another narrative out there about AEW and their ticket pricing structure. I've actually seen some things since that time. I haven't done the research, but I've seen a couple just of articles that have been promoted, if you will, where like AEW has been like having such a hard time getting people in seats in some venues because of the venues they're choosing, and for whatever other reasons, probably the ticket pricing, that like they were doing like buy one get one free, and like it was disappointing for me because I went with a friend, Glenn, who listens to this podcast. I believe you know Glenn as well. We bought tickets in a pre-sale, and we spent a decent amount plus the Ticketmaster fees, 3 months in advance, and then to only figure out like that tickets in that same pricing tier or structure were far reduced in the days leading up to the show. The comment I saw in the article that I perused, didn't fully read, was just simply like, when will AEW make the adjustment proactively to not burn goodwill with dedicated loyal fans? So that's not Ring of Honor related. That's more AEW and fan centric. But in that space, in that night, they taped 3 Ring of Honor matches for the taping before Collision, and then they taped the rest, I think 8 or 9 matches after. We went until almost quarter to midnight, which was a long night of wrestling. I understand you don't want to burn people out before your live show. You want that energy, you want that pop, and if you did too much beforehand, you run the risk of doing that. That being said, afterwards, like the place started to, people left in droves. Like there was no rhyme or reason. There was no hook. So that's what led me to like going, man, I think Ring of Honor just really needs a facelift in a way. And we've talked about it too before. The champions that you're focused on, and I think that might be a lot of our conversation today, aren't people that you're focusing on when you're doing the weekly show, unless it's like vignettes or one-offs every 3 months or every 2 months or what have you. The only thing, and I'm going to give this away now, the only thing that I won't be talking about when I talk about kind of my vision for what Ring of Honor could be is I'm not going to touch the women, because I think that's the one thing that Tony Khan has gotten right. Athena has been an incredible women's world champion. There have been numerous challengers built well. The women's roster has been fluid enough, and the storytelling there, to the best of my knowledge, without having seen it but only having read about it, has been the best. Everything else, maybe outside of the Eddie Kingston winning of the title and then what will come next, has been underwhelming at best from my perspective. So I'll stop there. I've said a lot, but just that night alone, the tapings and experiencing that was enough for me to go, man, what else could be going on? And it was really, really funny. I think you know this from what I've shared before, and I hope that you get a chance to someday experience it too. When you're at an AEW taping, Tony Khan comes out and he tells the crowd how much he loves being there and how much he loves the city. It's very Homerish. But for the Ring of Honor component of this, the latter half, he goes, if you're still here, you must be true wrestling connoisseurs. And I'm like what a weird thing to say, right? Like, you're not giving us some of the biggest names in the world, but he comes out and he goes, I've got international stars that are coming out, and then you get Metalik. And with all due respect to Metalik, I'm like, okay, Tony Khan, like, not meeting the expectation. Yeah.
And I think you nailed it on the head, the hook piece. If you're going to tape a 2-hour show on top of a 2-hour live show with Collision, like, you better give somebody a reason to stick around. Because that is a long night, as you said. Even if you do part of it before and part of it after, it's still the same amount of time, just a matter of when you're taping it. And with all due respect to everybody who works those Ring of Honor tapings, because I think there are a lot of talented people that are working those Ring of Honor tapings, like they're not building stories, I don't feel like, on Ring of Honor that go anywhere beyond maybe a week or something. And even, you mentioned the Eddie Kingston winning the title, the Eddie and Claudio thing, like that mostly played out on AEW TV, not Ring of Honor TV. Like, the first thing I think they've got to do, and I understand the taping situation, from a production standpoint, they're already taking their live stuff out twice and buying satellite time and all of those things, whatever they have to do to make it all work. And they're already doing that twice a week with Dynamite and with Collision. I understand budget wise, like maybe it doesn't make sense to, and you're struggling to draw for both of those as well. So Ring of Honor is its own touring brand, probably not financially feasible right now. But you could do things to make it more viable. I think the tapings at Universal made sense, except you're not getting anybody to pay for it, So from a financial standpoint there, but you could create kind of the Ring of Honor zone, like the old Impact zone. But you got to make people want to come. You got to give people a reason. I feel like that's the biggest problem Ring of Honor has right now. From, again, like you, I don't have Honor Club. So I don't watch the show regularly. I see clips here and there and things on YouTube and things like that. And I read the results every week, probably more intently every other week because I'm scoring them for our fantasy wrestling league, but I do read them on the weeks that I'm not scoring. There's another fantasy wrestling for first fantasy wrestling. No, I mentioned the Pick'ems earlier. So, but there's nothing they're doing on Ring of Honor TV from what I'm reading is making me read it and go, oh man, maybe I need to plunk the $10 down and find the time to watch this show because it sounds really good. Like everything I'm reading is like, yep, I'm making the right decision, not spending that $10 and I don't have the time anyways. If you give me a reason to make the time, I'm going to do what I can to try and figure out the time. But if you don't, I got plenty of other things going on in my life that are taking up a lot of my time, good things. So I'm not going to devote that. So I think for me, that's the first thing. Like they've got to make it destination TV. You've got to make me invest in what you're doing. The last pay-per-view, I'd have to pull up the results, but I feel like there was like no build. And then all of a sudden it was like the week before, like, here are all these matches. And you're like, they'll be fine matches. I have no doubt the show was good. But they're all cold. They're all, or repeats or, So I just, those are kind of my initial thoughts. So what we talked about doing was taking about 10 people each. I think I'm just over that on my list. I apologize. Math is hard. And who we would kind of focus on. And I have no doubt as we go through our list, we're going to have some crossovers. And I have no doubt we're also going to have some people who each of us are like, oh, that's a really good idea that you had or I had that the other guy didn't think of. I'm guessing that'll happen anyways. We have not shared these lists with each other for those who are listening. And then kind of talk about what our vision might be. And maybe I've already been saying a little bit of somewhat my vision. But how do we want to do this, Tom? We didn't really talk about a format for this.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. I have no
Sorry,
idea.
My wife's moving furniture upstairs, so see me looking upstairs. I'm like, what is happening in my house?
Yeah, I was trying to quickly pull up the Death Before Dishonor results. It doesn't really matter. Just because I was going to use that as a point of reference for what actually happened. But yes, to your point, I want to say the matches for that evolved in an 8-day period or less.
Something like that. Yeah. And we can get those if we need them. Why don't we one of us read our lists and then kind of talk a little bit about why we picked those people and then the other one go or go back and forth with people? What do you think, Tom? Listen to our planning live on the air here, folks.
Yeah, well, so I guess so. If it's okay, the way I was kind of building this out is like I'm looking at the champions, and then I'm looking at like people who I would see them challenging for those championships, and then maybe things to add and become more of a draw. Like again, to your point, when Honor Club becomes destination viewing, like people will pay the money. And that until that becomes that for me, and I'm not sure what it would take. So I want to be transparent about that. I'm not spending $10 a month. I'm not spending any amount a month. I'm not spending $4.99 a month. One thing I will say is in the pre-work for this conversation today, a statement that I'll make that emphasizes what appears to be a lack of intentionality around Ring of Honor. If you go to the Ring of Honor website and you look at their roster, it literally features almost no one that is on the TV every single week. It features some of the big names that you would expect to see, but it does not feature even traditionally used, regularly used talents on a week-to-week basis. That right there is a flaw in your presentation from my point of view. You juxtapose that to the AEW website, again, and they're under the same umbrella. That roster page is flourishing. So take that for what you will.
I hadn't even gone to the Ring of Honor site, and it's interesting. I'm just there now looking at it. Yeah, that's intriguing.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I'll get started. So again, the champions in Ring of Honor, as we have this conversation today, world champion is Eddie Kingston, TV champion Samoa Joe, pure champion Katsuyori Shibata, 6-man tag champs Adam Page and the Young Bucks, tag champs MJF and the injured Adam Cole, and then the women's champion Athena. So as I said, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna touch the women's division. Athena, I think, is the brightest spot in Ring of Honor and has been for the better part of the last year. If I were running a Ring of Honor, I would immediately get rid of the 6-man tag team titles. I would do something where those and the AEW trios titles get merged and they become the AEW trios unified championship. And the Ring of Honor belts are never seen or heard from again unless you want to have them at a stand at a fan fest. There's no point in Adam Page and the Young Bucks being the champions now. You literally have seen them do nothing with the titles or have them not be spoken of that I can recall since they won them from the Mogul Embassy. And the whole purpose behind that was to give fuel to the Adam Page-Shane Strickland match. So again, I hate to say this because I love the lineage of championships, but championships are props to tell stories, and they literally were used only to do that in that case, and then there's been nothing ever since then. So
that would to tell a story that had nothing to do with the titles.
Precisely. So I'd immediately get rid of those titles. There's no focus. There's not an emphasis on trios matches in Ring of Honor. When you look at their TV, here and there's been some lucha trios. And again, if you wanted to make them lucha centric, which you could do in Ring of Honor, and I haven't even touched that, it's just coming to mind right now, that'd be great. But you haven't done that, and I don't see you doing that. So just get rid of them. That'd be my first move in terms of the championship piece. I would keep the Ring of Honor world title. I would keep the TV title. I think that is a distinguishable title, much like the international title in AEW. I would keep the pure title. I actually focus on the pure title more than the TV title because the unique set of rules can make that a draw. You're not spending enough time on doing that. And then I would immediately I would be making some title changes. We'll talk about that. And then I would immediately move on from MJF and Adam Cole. I would have those belts have to be vacated versus having them be lost.
Yeah, and everything you said makes sense. I too would. I probably would get rid of the 6-man titles. I would do one of two things. I would either get rid of the 6-man titles or focus on the dumb things and actually make them mean something. Like if you're going to have them, make them mean something. If you're going to have a title, make it mean something. I would definitely, the interesting thing is you look at the Ring of Honor website is those champions. I don't feel like outside of Athena and maybe Samoa Joe, none of them feel like Ring of Honor talents right now. They all feel like AEW or Katsuyori Shibata, New Japan, even though I think he's wrestled more for AEW than he has in Ring of Honor than he has New Japan in the last number of years since coming back. But he doesn't feel like that, like a Ring of Honor talent, which maybe isn't fair because if he's wrestled more for Ring of Honor than anywhere else, then maybe he should. But I don't know why he doesn't feel that way to me. I just keep waiting for him to lose the title, to be perfectly honest. I thought it was going to happen at Death Before Dishonor to Daniel Garcia when he wrestled him there. And I do have the results up. And yeah, it's a hodgepodge of what in the world happened there. Claudio and Pac, I couldn't even remember the world title match. And that was based off of what had happened at Blood and Guts the week before. You had the fight without honor between the Righteous and the Dark Order, Shibata Garcia. You had Athena versus Willow, which bore out of Forbidden Door. The 6-man title match at that point the Mogul Embassy still had the belts. They defended against Leon Ruffin, Master Wato, and Risuke Taguchi. What? It's a pay-per-view title match, folks. Build somebody. That is the most random trio. I mean, I know Wato and Taguchi are stablemates, I believe, in New Japan, and that's okay, fine. But then you throw in Leon Ruffin. Like, what? Just weird. That was where Aussie Open won the tag titles, only to turn around and lose them, a few weeks later, which just annoys me. And unfortunately, of course, Mark Davis is hurt now. I have not seen the Kyle Fletcher Kenny Omega match. I know who wins it because I've been on Facebook and I've seen things, which doesn't shock me. But I'm very much looking forward to that match because I think Fletcher is a stud who can be a star. He's only like 24 or something crazy young. And I'm glad they're giving him some time when it looks like Davis is going to be out for a little bit. So that's cool. Champions wise, I would change many of them. I agree 100% with the Ring of Honor tag titles. The MJF Adam Cole storyline does not need those belts, especially now if Adam Cole apparently did have surgery last week. I still think he's the guy behind the mask, even though we don't show the people behind the mask anymore. They came one week and now we talk about him every once in a while, but nothing happens with him. Which you could still
continuity,
right? Continuity, exactly. And you could still, if Adam Cole is going to be the one revealed, and if Adam Cole had surgery last week, sounds like he did, so he probably can't be there live. And they filmed ahead some of those vignettes, I'm sure, all at once, so that they could have them on TV for a few weeks. You could still have somebody else under that mask for now, to still do things, and then eventually reveal Adam Cole. Sorry, AEW talk. We're talking Ring of Honor, but get the belts off MJF and Adam Cole. They don't need them. You can do it easily now. You can either vacate him or you can beat MJF by having him get beat up either by the mask guys or somebody jumps him, and so it's an unfair thing, and then somebody beats him, and it doesn't hurt MJF. MJF is Teflon at this point. He could get beat, and it's not going to hurt the guy, especially if it's in a handicap situation.
Another thing, and I feel like we've talked about this before, but I don't think I've ever named it or you've ever named it in this way. But we belabor at times the Ring of Honor title matches that are on AEW television. That just needs to stop, right? Like, here's the thing. How do you know that Ring of Honor can be a draw for you if you're giving it away for free? Don't. Guess what? Hype it, build it, show a vignette, but don't give them the match. If you want to see Samoa Joe defend the TV title, guess what? It's going to happen on Honor Club. If you want to see Eddie Kingston defend the Ring of Honor World title, it's going to happen on Honor Club. It doesn't seem like it makes sense. I mean, again, I don't know all of the inner workings of the professional wrestling business, nor would I ever claim to. That being said, like, when you're giving me something that I can get on Rampage or Dynamite or Collision, why would I go somewhere else? Why would I pay more for it anywhere else?
And I don't think I'd have to look through results. I didn't do enough research on this to know. But using Eddie Kingston as an example, I know he's had at least one proving ground match last week on Ring of Honor TV because I scored it, so I know it happened. But I would bet since he's won that title, he's had more proving ground or title defense matches on Rampage, Collision, or Dynamite. Probably not Rampage, to be honest, let's be honest, but mostly Dynamite or Collision. Then he has Ring of Honor TV. That's a problem, like you said, because now you're not even, if you look through the results of Ring of Honor TV, more often than not, if the champs are there, they're in proving ground matches. They never lose those proving ground matches, ever, at this point. And they're against people that you're like, why is Vert Vixen getting a proving ground match against Athena? Like, what match has she won? Or Eddie Kingston versus Serpentico last week. Serpentico hasn't won a match in like 900 years. So why is he getting a proving ground match? Well, because he's old. He's an ancient Egyptian serpent or something. I don't know what he is. But.
I'm glad I was going there too. I'm so glad that's what you named.
Right.
We have continuity.
Right, absolutely. Isn't it, the rebirth of Ophidian from Chikara? I don't know. No, it's not. Serpentico, nothing against Serpentico. Hard worker, probably could be used a lot better than he is, frankly. But you haven't built him to mean anything. So why do I think he's going to beat Eddie Kingston in a proving ground match? Like, what? That's just So you're not driving anybody to Honor Club, as you were saying, Tom. I'm 100% lockstep with you on that. In fact, what you're actually saying is, yeah, the Honor Club stuff doesn't matter. Make sure you tune into Dynamite and Collision, because that's where the stuff that matters actually happens with Ring of Honor titles. Well, okay, now I'm not going to pay you $10 because I can watch it for free, or I'll buy the pay-per-view, either Ring of Honor or AEW, because heck, you had Eddie Kingston defend the Ring of Honor and New Japan Strong titles on WrestleDream, which WrestleDream kind of had a little cross-promotional twist to it. Wasn't pushed, wasn't quite as Forbidden Door-ish, but still. It's not just that they do it at Full Gear and Double or Nothing, and pure AEW pay-per-views. They do it too.
Walking back to the tag team title scene. So we both agree that getting the belts off MJF and Adam Cole would be a priority for each of us. The tag team division isn't really built well in Ring of Honor, in my opinion. There's some teams that I think have potential, but I think there hasn't been enough time given, again, part and parcel to what you're getting every week on Honor Club. So I came up with 3 teams that I think would be really great teams to focus on. The Righteous, I think, deserves more than what they got, even though they lost their crack at WrestleDream. I think there's a lot to go and do there with Vincent and Dutch. I think you separate the best friends from AEW and put them on Ring of Honor exclusively for a while. I think they are an act that definitely is already over, but could get to the next level, or could help build teams to get them even more over. So Chuck Taylor and Trent on exclusively in Ring of Honor. And then this team that I've had a little bit of an affinity for a while, when I did a fantasy booking storytelling thing a year ago, I had a lot of rub that I gave to the Butcher and the Blade. I think the Butcher and the Blade on Ring of Honor, giving them a tag team title run and letting them be world beaters, or just letting them be really like just establish themselves. Like they've never had that. They've had segments of glimmer in AEW, but for the most part, outside of maybe that first year, they've just been kind of plug and play guys. Ring of Honor would give them the chance to not be plug and play guys. They could actually be someone you could grow and develop and see what you have, right?
Yeah, and it's funny. I had one tag team on my list, and I had 2 others that I had thought of, and I don't know why I never typed them in. And we match on 2 of those. In the Righteous is who I would put the straps on, to be perfectly honest. That's who I would put the belts on, is the Righteous. I feel like the Kingdom has kind of moved into AEW, and I would leave them there. They're involved in that top story, with MJF and Adam Cole and Roderick Strong, who's doing some of the best character work. It's so annoying, and that's exactly what it's supposed to be. Like, it annoys the heck out of me every time he yells, Adam! I did see, really quick aside, that somebody suggested, maybe we talked about it 2 weeks ago, that Adam Copeland showing up in AEW, he should take the mic when he had his first promo and say, well, my name is, and then have Roderick come like, Adam! Which would have been funny, but they didn't do that. And probably okay, because you're mixing 2 top stories at that point in a weird way. But the Righteous is who I think. So that's why I didn't have the Kingdom in there, I guess is what I want to say. Is I feel like they've moved into AEW, and I think they're working there. So I'd leave them there. So the Righteous would be who I would. Otherwise, the Kingdom would be who I'd put the belts on, but I want them in AEW. So the Righteous, the Butcher and the Blade are absolutely the other team I thought of. That I agree exactly with what you said. Give them purpose. Give them a chance to develop. I think they're both really good, actually, and they get lost in the shuffle in AEW. And the other team I feel that way about is the Iron Savages, Boulder and Bronson. I think you need to pick a gimmick with them to begin with. Like, you have Iron Savages, which sounds, and I get iron, it's pumping iron, whatever, but like their Tron doesn't look like it's got anything to do with weights in the gym and everything. And then they come out and they're Heavy Machinery 2.0. Like, and I drop Jack Jameson. Like, I don't understand his reasoning for being there. He go do something else or be a different character. But let the Iron Savages go back to somewhat Bear Bronson and Bear Boulder. They don't have to be the Bears or whatever that was, back then, but have them be just the dominant tail kicking tag team, that your big powerhouses. I think they could really use that kind of rebranding or whatever in Ring of Honor. So I agree. Ring of Honor for so many years, and yes, of course, it had its lulls at times, but for so many years, tag team wrestling was a huge, huge part of Ring of Honor. You think about the Briscoes and you think about the Kings of Wrestling and Generation Next and some of the just amazing tag teams, and I'm leaving a lot out. I realize I'm just naming a couple off the top of my head. But, and at times Tony Khan has paid homage to that, especially before Jay's passing with the Briscoes. FTR was a part of that lineage. Aussie Open has been a part of that, the Lucha Bros. But a number of those teams haven't been focused on in Ring of Honor. In fact, I would say none of those three have been focused on Ring of Honor, other than the fact they were the champions, and then not focused on, as we've talked about before. So I think rebuilding that and making that something that's important in Ring of Honor would make a ton of sense. It would absolutely speak to the old school Ring of Honor fans like you and I, because we remember that and fondly, and I loved it. And there's and then you could do things. I know right now they're working with a Griff Garrison and Cole Carter tag team that's getting put together by Maria Kanellis. You could do things like that with two guys who weren't going anywhere as singles. Griff Garrison kind of got left in the dust as Pillman went over to NXT. So, create something there that's still developing. We'll see. Maybe that turns into the next, good young tag team. That'd be really cool for them. So you can do things like that, Action Andretti and which one? Darius Martin. I have to remember which one got hurt. Obviously Top Flight would be a team that I would have in Ring of Honor as well when Dante gets back, but that could be a while. You could do that with Andretti and Darius Martin, unless Andretti's going to keep getting murdered by Miro. But wherever that goes. Tag team wrestling. Do it, Tony. That's what I'm saying. Do it. I did have a couple of women that I would focus on. I know, and honestly, it's staying status quo. So I agree with you that I wouldn't mess with it. Athena, 100% would be somebody I would keep focusing on. I think they've done that really well. And her minion, Billy Starks, is who I also had on my list. And they're doing that. They're building eventually. Now I will say, as much as and you said with the women, it seems like the storytelling is better. At some point when Billy Starks either gets turned on by Athena or turns on Athena, and they have that match, I think Billy Starks is probably the person to beat Athena for that title, because they've built the story, and now when it happens, you're going to want to see Billy get that revenge. It may not happen the first match. I don't know. Maybe it will. It might be the second or third match. You might have to get there, because she's the minion in training and whatever. But, they've done a nice job with that. I think Billy Starks is somebody, she's 19, 20 years old, something like that.
She's very much like the Nick Wayne female version of Nick Wayne. They both graduated high school 4 months ago. Right.
So, insanely young, insanely talented for as young as she is. And the sky's the limit for her and Nick Wayne as well. And spoiler alert, we're going to talk about him in a minute. So Billy Starks was the other one I had in the women. So just to throw those names out there. Well, let's talk about singles male competitors. I have a list of some. You have a list of some.
I broke mine out kind of across the three title tiers. So world title, TV title, pure title. So I'll just run through them quickly, and then we can have dialogue. Before I get into this, I will just say there are some omissions, and I omitted people specifically because Ring of Honor is already doing something with them. I'm not saying that they're doing something well, but they're doing something. So I didn't want to ape what was already on TV. I wanted to come up with something new or different, or to build on something that had been previously established, but that's not currently relevant. So you'll not hear me name Ethan Page, who I think what they've done with him or their attempts to try to build him up in Ring of Honor have been a good spot for that. Scorpio Sky, same type of thing. And then to a lesser extent, Christopher Daniels. So I those three are not named at all by me. So world title, actually, let me go pure TV world. Pure title, I got three guys. I got Josh Woods, I got Daniel Garcia, and I got Lee Moriarty. All of those guys, I would have them have title runs over the course of the next year. I agree with you going back to Death Before Dishonor. Daniel Garcia should have won that title and should have been a staple in Ring of Honor after that. He clearly had sunset the whole Jericho Appreciation Society thing. I know it's hard to not talk about AEW when we're talking about this space, but it seems
like that problem. So
it seems like that we can easily draw that line. Daniel Garcia could have easily and can easily be a staple in the pure division in Ring of Honor. But then I think the building of Josh Woods and Lee Moriarty and the matches that group could have, amongst others, could be fantastic. And again, I really say emphasize and draw a line back or an arrow to those rules and make those matches what they can be. Something unique, something different. Let the storytelling and let the athletes do that for you. In the TV title space, I got AR Fox, who's already been a little bit in there, but that was months ago. And two new names for me here in that space. Buddy Matthews, who I don't know what's going on with the House of Black, but Buddy Matthews in a TV title run spot opposing Samoa Joe and perhaps unseating Samoa Joe would be amazing. And then Pac. I think Pac, his last 18, 24 months outside of the trios title run, which I know when he went away, when they lost titles, it was due to injury and then he came back. But then since he's come back, it's like either injury again or something else is going on. Let him live in the space at Ring of Honor and let him get that spot there. And then the world title group was much larger. So Lance Archer, Colt Cabana, who I think needs to and can be way more than a plug and play guy. He's way more than comedy. He's a good professional wrestler. And he's probably towards the end of his career, maybe. So give him a chance. Bandito, upon return from injury. Keith Lee, who I think should be a staple in Ring of Honor without question. And then a guy who just came back to AEW, but I feel like always will get lost in the shuffle. And until Tony Khan proves me wrong, Wardlow. I think Wardlow being the face or one of the faces of Ring of Honor really could do a lot for both the brand and for him. Again, we talked about this a number of times. Let's go back to June of 2022, right after the Wardlow MJF deal, when MJF quits in the forum and walks off. He took all of Wardlow's heat with him when he left, and Wardlow has never gotten it back. It's so sad. So those are the guys that focus on. I haven't built out like a storyline for each or how that would happen, but I think that would rejuvenate my interest in Ring of Honor with those guys being in those areas.
Yeah, and I was just kind of moving guys into those three areas on my list here as you were talking to kind of mimic a little bit, although I have a miscellaneous category as well. And I don't have as many in each division just because of who I picked, and I don't know where I'd slot a couple of these guys. So I created a miscellaneous. Hey, we make the rules up as we go here, people. So in the world title, it's interesting. I had obviously Eddie Kingston, which is you have him as well in there because I think we both feel. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. I'm fine with Eddie Kingston as remaining as Ring of Honor World Champion and being a focal point in Ring of Honor. Yes. I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay. So Kingston and the two names that I listed in the world title division after moving people around, you had both of them, Keith Lee and Bandito. I think both of those near the top of the card in Ring of Honor. Keith Lee is just kind of not being focused on. I do love that he has picked up Run as his kind of tagline, obviously as a little homage to Bray Wyatt. I think that's very cool. And I think it works for him too, because like if a man that size is mad at you, run. Like that's not a bad idea. Move, get out of the way, because that guy's gonna hurt you. But the problem is they don't actually have him do it. Like they say it, but they don't book him to do it. It's funny. You got to actually make him what he can be. And I don't know why that's been with Keith Lee, both on the WWE main roster and now in AEW. Like it almost makes me wonder, like, and I'm not accusing anything, but like, is there an effort issue with Keith Lee? Is it just booking, or is there something else? I guess is what I'm asking. Like, why does this keep happening to this super talented big guy who it seems like would be really easy if he's got the desire and you got the desire to get behind him? Like, you should be able to make money with this guy pretty easily, I feel like, with his agility and his look and his like ability. I don't know why it seems like it just keeps not happening. So it makes me wonder, is there something else there? And Bandito, former Ring of Honor World Champion. So you have lineage there, uber talented guy. So I'm looking forward to when he comes back from injury. I hope he gets focused on somewhere, whether it's Ring of Honor or AEW. in the TV title kind of area, obviously Joe, I don't have an issue with Joe. If Joe's going to be in Ring of Honor, though, again, I want him in Ring of Honor. Now you also have him, wanting another shot at the AEW World Title, which I'm okay with that too, but pick one. Because now you keep beating your ROH TV champion with your world champion AEW, and you just keep showing the Ring of Honor is not as good as AEW. Like, stop doing that. You run both companies. You don't have to do that.
There's a lot of guys that are making claims for the AEW World Title. It's got me thinking that whatever happens at Full Gear, we're getting another World Title Eliminator tournament with those names. And we're gonna get like whatever that happens. It's gonna culminate maybe at Winter is Coming. I don't know. Sorry to pivot off of Ring of Honor, but just like Samoa Joe has said that. You've got
Jay White, obviously. Wardlow.
Jay White's in the mix. Wardlow makes his claim on Wednesday. I'm that far in Dynamite where I've seen that. So it's just really interesting to see like that. I mean, everybody should be gunning for that. If you're anyone in that promotion, if you're not gunning for the Ring of Honor World Title and you're a male competitor. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. See, we're talking about Ring of Honor. That's where I went. Yes. That should be the focus for everybody, regardless.
Yeah. No, and I like that AEW is doing that. Now, obviously, you got to flesh that out and continue to make it. You can't just have everybody every week go, "Oh, I want the AEW World Title," and then do nothing about it. So you got to flesh it out. But I'm willing to give them. I like that multiples. That it's not just, well, this is the challenger this month, so he's the only guy who wants the AEW World Title, and everybody else in the promotion doesn't care, which is kind of what wrestling does sometimes. So I do like that they're making multiple people, and then MJF is kind of talking about it too, like, man, I got everybody coming after me right now, like, and I need my best friend, I need Adam, and they're doing a nice job of that. The two other names that I put in the TV title kind of division are Mark Briscoe when he comes back from injury. Briscoe, Ring of Honor just works. And I think in that TV title world, I think he probably would have won the TV title had he not gotten hurt, to be perfectly honest. So I think that makes a lot of sense to have Mark Briscoe in Ring of Honor. And then the other person I put in there is a little bit of a curveball. You'd have to sign him full time, but Blake Christian is somebody I would really like to see focused on in Ring of Honor. He's doing great work in GCW right now. I don't believe he's actually signed anywhere. I think he's just kind of a freelance and can do what he wants. AEW uses him occasionally, but frankly doesn't. He gets a win here and there on Ring of Honor against a nobody. But when you put him up against anybody of note, he's kind of a jobber to the stars. I think Blake Christian has a lot more to offer and has proved that in GCW as their world champion. So he's somebody that I would like to see get focused on in Ring of Honor. Pure title, I didn't have anybody besides Daniel Garcia on my list. Obviously, you're going to need to flesh that out. I like Josh Woods, and I like the idea of Lee Moriarty as well in that. I like that they've moved Moriarty with Shane Taylor. I'm interested to see where that goes. I think that fits more than whatever he was doing with the firm that never really went anywhere and those kinds of things. So I like those ideas. My three kind of miscellaneous and then what's that I would put in Ring of Honor and focus on in some way. Commander, I think he is super talented as a lucha talent. You could even, I'd like Bandito to be in the world title, but you could do, and I don't want this to get stereotypical, like a Bandito Commander tag team. If you focused on them together, gave them a name, and don't call them Lucha House Party or something stupid like that. That could be a really fun tag team, or some sort of an alliance anyways, if they went after titles together. So Commander was one. Nick Wayne, I mentioned him earlier. I think the sky's the limit for Nick Wayne. I'm not 100% sure he's ready for AEW national TV all the time, and granted, putting him in with Christian Cage and having him in storyline, but let's be honest, in reality, learning under the tree of Christian Cage is not a bad idea at all. And obviously, I'm sure behind the scenes, he's still working with Darby, and that's another good person to teach him. And hey, maybe Sting's even working with him a little bit, which again, not a bad person. So I think Wayne's got a ton of potential. I think you could focus on him in Ring of Honor in a way and get him developed where, that's going to be a stud for you down the road in AEW. So keep building into him. And the other person I would move over to Ring of Honor and focus on, and they've done a little bit of focus on him on Rampage, is Mike Santana. I think Santana is a super talented guy who has a world of ability and a world of potential. And obviously he and Ortiz are doing a little bit of a feud right now because they do not get along behind the scenes apparently anymore. And I love that those two have been able to somehow, it appears, take their personal thing and go, well, let's make money with it. We don't like each other. Let's work together though, and make this work. And it'll probably get pretty soon. I'm looking forward to the eventual Santana Ortiz match, maybe at Full Gear. I don't know. Why do I feel like that's going to be on the buy-in though? Put it on the pay-per-view. Do it, Tony. I dare you. So he's another one that I would. So some interesting talents, I think that both of us have that could. I like the Buddy Murphy thing. I had thought about that and thought, well, House of Black though is, well, they were a Collision team, but then now, since they've lost the titles, I don't even know if we've seen them outside of Brody King with Julia.
And Brody King has that cast on his arm, so it's like, what's the deal?
Maybe that's part of the issue is that Brody's hurt. But I mean, both Malachi Black and Buddy Murphy, if they're healthy, are amazing singles competitors. Or you can have those two team together. Like, just because one guy in the trio's hurt doesn't mean the other two. They're doing it with Kyle Fletcher right now. Mark Davis hurt. You're still using Kyle Fletcher. Like, use Malachi and Buddy Murphy. Hello, you got two super talented guys on your roster.
Yeah, I love that you added Mike Santana without question. He was a name that I had considered, and I just didn't know like where I fell on him. It's really weird. Like, I feel that prior to his injury in Blood and Guts, I was very much into him, and him being out of the mix, and then the way he returned, and then just the lack of use hasn't maybe lit my spark for him in that way. And then Nick Wayne, I love that you said Nick Wayne. I'm a huge Nick Wayne fan over here. I love everything Nick Wayne does. I was mad that he turned heel because I like him so much as just a talent, but it makes sense that he's a heel. I intentionally, if we would have had this conversation a month ago prior to his turn, he would have been on my list for Ring of Honor without question, because I thought it would have been a great opportunity for him to evolve and get more opportunity with a spotlight without the pressure of national TV. But now with him being paired with Christian Cage, that is why I exempted him from my list.
Yeah, and I understand that thought process. As much as I said with Kingdom, they're in AEW, they're doing AEW things, so I didn't use them. I kind of went right against that with Nick Wayne. So,
hey, we make the rules.
We make the rules. That's right. So, we didn't really set parameters for this. So,
yeah, no, it was a fun conversation. And again, like, I clearly I'm a fan of what I wrote because I wrote it. It's what would check my boxes. But I love what you laid out too. I would definitely be interested in seeing, a 3-month vision of what you could do, starting with TV next Thursday, getting us, it's not 3 months, but getting us the final battle, right? Like, you could have 2 months to build those stories using the talents that you named, just as I could. And again, we may be the only ones that are fans of that, but I can't imagine that we wouldn't find other people who go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Again, you and I have no professional training in professional wrestling booking, management, what have you. We're just two fans, but I think there are fans. Again, Will Washington, I think, is one of them who because of his fandom became an employee at AEW. So again, I don't know the statistics, like when they talk about, hey, only 2% of college athletes become professional athletes, right? Only 0.5% of pro wrestling fans become employed in the world of pro wrestling, or something to that effect.
It's probably even smaller than that, actually, but
sure it is.
And we are not a part of whatever that small percent is, and probably never will be. But and that's not what we're angling for. Obviously, we're just a couple of guys talking about what we do, and there's a million of us out there that talk about what we do, but it's because we love what we watch and we want it to be better. And hopefully we've shown over the years as we continue to do this show that when something's really good, we'll talk about it being really good and how much we're enjoying it. But when things can use improvement, which I think, and you think, Ring of Honor certainly can. And I would argue you'd be hard pressed if somebody really told me, like, yeah, man, what Ring of Honor is doing right now is really, as you say, checking all my boxes. I'm loving everything. Like, I mean, cool. If there's some people out there that feel that way, I'd be interested to know what about it is it, though? Is it just that it has the letters ROH and you're so, enthralled and bought in with Ring of Honor, as you and I have been over the years, that whatever they do is going to work? Okay. And if that works for you, that's okay. That's great. Wonderful. But I just feel like you'd be hard pressed to say what they're doing on Ring of Honor television Now, again, what they're doing with the Ring of Honor champions on AEW might be working for you, but on Ring of Honor television, is that working for you? My other thought is, last thought, if you're going to do tapings for Ring of Honor on the same night you're doing Collision, I kind of alluded to this earlier, don't make them 2 hours. Make it an hour show or an hour and a half if you have to.
Yeah. The one thing I didn't mention is it was really, really long. Like right. there were moments where I was like, I may have to leave. Like you're not giving me anything to really, but I was like, I really like professional wrestling, and I'm at a live wrestling show that I paid X amount of dollars for. I have to stick this out. I mean, it was almost like, this is the sword I will die on tonight.
There were 13 matches on Ring of Honor last week. Ring of Honor television, 13 matches. Of those matches, there were 3 title or proving ground matches. Those matches were Eddie Kingston and Serpentico, as I mentioned earlier. Athena with a proving ground match against Maserati because she's done anything to deserve that. Nothing against Maserati, but why is she trying, getting that opportunity, I should say? Why is she trying to earn a title shot? Hey, because they told her she could, and she should want to do that. But why is she earned that right? And then the AAA Latin American title match, QT Marshall over Daga. But you could trim some of this stuff. I mean, Kip Sabian over Anthony Henry. I like both guys, but does that have to be there? Angelico over Marty Castle. Does that have to be there? The Gates of Agony whooping 2 nobodies. Does that have to be there? I mean, there's things you can trim, and make those make sense. There's stuff you can do. So, anyways, belabored point.
Yeah, no, fun conversation. I'm glad we had it. I know we talked about it for weeks and weeks. Today we delivered. So look at us 2 spot monkeys.
That's right. Coming through on things we deliver. That's what we do here at 2 Spot Monkeys. So again, we are planning to be with you next week and for a number of weeks moving forward. Next week, 2 weeks before we got to make crown jewel picks. So next week we'll talk about something. We don't know what yet.
Yeah. Probably a potpourri of AEW, WWE, and maybe something else. Who knows?
Right. Could be anything. I will say really quickly before we sign off, Tom, at Powertown Wrestling, to go to action figures for a moment, put back up their Series 1. They did up the price. They went from $40 to $55. And they totally got me. I ordered Magnum TA and Kerry Von Erich because I love the Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen that I have behind me so much. And I was just going to get Magnum because I don't have a Magnum TA. I kind of wanted a Magnum TA. And then I was like, but if they end up releasing Kevin Von Erich and Frit, like I'm probably going to want all the Von Erichs, so I better grab Kerry while I'm at it. So I did that. And Matt Cardona, that guy, there are times that Matt Cardona annoys the absolute out of me. In the way that he kind of handles himself. And yet I have to tip my cap to him because the dude is entrepreneurial to a level that I have to respect. And his Major Figure Pod and Major Figure merch, they've done Major Bendies for a while. And then now they had introduced the Big Rubber Guys, which is the ode to LJN. They did, of course, Cardona and Myers first. I didn't bother ordering those. I'm not a big Cardona or Myers guy. And if you are, you can have almost as many figures of them as John Cena at this point because they've come out in every line. Again, they're really good merchandisers. They're really good entrepreneurs. I have Demolition on order. They're supposed to be here next month from the Big Rubber Guys. So I'm excited to reveal those when I get them here. And he got me last night. He was on Sean Ross Sapp's show over the week. And so I listened to him promote the Big Rubber Guys. And so I've got both Macho Man and Andre on order as well from the Big Rubber Guys. I don't know if you've seen those prototype images, Tom.
I have not, no.
I'll have to shoot them to you. The Macho looks just phenomenal. And Andre, the thing with Andre is, you remember the LJ on Andre? It had the bent legs.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
In the kind of this pose. I mean, Andre's bigger than everybody else, but then you bend his legs, so now he's the same size as every other figure you have. They didn't bend his legs, so Andre is actually $5 more than all their other Big Rubber Guys because they used more to make him. So I was like, crap. Now they got me on the 80s Big Rubber Guys, and I kind of feel bad that I didn't order Slaughter and Flair in the last one. And yeah, it's funny. I'm going more away from Mattel and more of these more expensive kind of premier level figures, but I love them. So Katie asked me last week, what am I supposed to do if you ever die with all this stuff? And my answer was call Tom. He'll help you. So hopefully that day doesn't come anytime.
No, please no.
50
Please
years,
no.
but somewhere down the road, you may get a call from my wife in the home asking what to do with all my wrestling figures. So when we're all in the retirement homes. So, well, on that happy note, anything else, Tom, before we go?
Nope. I wish you may you live long and prosper. I feel like that might be Spock, but I don't want that's truly from me to you.
I appreciate that. Everybody have a great week. We will be back with you next week, right back here on Two Spot Monkeys Live.